You know Amphibia? It was a pretty popular show throughout the first couple of years in this decade. I'm sure many of my OG subscribers know what it is. Ever since the show ended, Amphibia fans have been craving for new content. To be fair, we have gotten that, and we will get some more soon in the form of graphic novels. However, I'm sure most of us want more, like a brand new series or even a movie, especially one that's about the Calamity trio. But what if I told you that this movie does exist? And this film is about the Calamity trio uniting after a long time apart, and they went on to become hunters to defend humanity from a realm of demons. And they did it by becoming K-pop stars. Well, I got good news for you, because that film does exist, and it's called Kpop Demon Hunters.
Yeah, this plane's trashed.
Okay, to be clear, for those who can't distinguish my sarcasm, I actually don't know if the creators of the film have ever seen or heard of Amphibia, although I wouldn't be surprised if they did. But regardless, this movie is something that I did not expect to enjoy as much as I did. Putting aside the Calamity trio comparisons, which I'll get into a little bit later, there's just so much to love about this film that I don't really know where to start. I guess off the bat, I just really enjoyed the animation and the 2D 3D hybrid art style that a lot more recent films from Sony has adopted. It's fresh and unique, and it really highlights some of the other amazing aspects of the movie, like its action scenes. I love seeing these three characters fight. It's pretty anime-esque, but still unique enough to be its own style. And the same can be said with other action scenes we've seen from other movies that adopted this animation. But what really elevates these action scenes a lot more from other animated action scenes is the music. Whenever I talk about shows and movies that I like, I usually don't go out of my way to talk about music. I'm someone who doesn't have any strong musical preferences, and generally with most shows and movies that I like, the music is not usually the strongest aspect of those stories. Also, they're a pain in the ass to showcase in videos because they have more stringent copyrights in my experience. But I'll be making an exception here because, man, I love the music from this film. I think this is the first movie that I've seen where I actually like listening to all of the songs. Seriously, all of them are really good bangers at least. Even the songs from the Saja Boys were pretty good, which may or may not be a hot take for some of you guys, I don't know.
All I can think of, every drop I drink up, you're my soda pop, I can be the star you rely on.
But naturally, the best songs in my view come from HUNTR themselves, with How It's Done, Golden, and What It Sounds Like being the best songs from this movie. And these are the ones that I willingly play whenever I can. Hell, I'm listening to the album as I'm writing the script. And I'm someone who doesn't usually listen to music when writing for these videos, especially music with lyrics in them. It's kinda crazy how, in the movie, songs from HUNTR and Saja Boys were of course cultural sensations, and this became reality in our real world. K-pop is just popular regardless of what world it's played in, or where it's from, I guess. Now, as much as I love this movie, there are a few flaws about it that I can't overlook. The main flaw being, surprisingly, the writing of this film. It's not terrible. The movie has a plot that seems easy to follow and keeps you engaged. The characters' personalities and their interactions are well executed too, but the messaging of the movie seems rather contradictory when you look at the film beneath its surface level greatness. The main storyline of the movie hinges on Rumi and her struggle to accept herself as someone who is part demon. Towards the end of the film, she does come around accepting herself and outgrowing her insecurities, and after she said that there needs to be a new Honmoon, I was expecting for her to tear down the magical barrier and free the tortured souls who had the demon patterns there. Then, when HUNTR creates the new Honmoon, they would seal off Guima from everyone, including the souls that were previously trapped in the demon realm. But instead, Rumi sang about accepting her demon parts, while she and the rest of the group indiscriminately killed every demon in their sight. Then when they finally complete the Honmoon, I'm pretty sure they trapped a lot of souls who didn't deserve to be in what's basically hell. I guess the only way for this conclusion to really work is if there's a sequel that involves freeing those trapped souls or something, I don't know. The climax of this movie really illustrates how the creators did everything they could to provide the best visual and audio experience they could, even if it comes at the cost of writing a nuanced message about accepting yourself. Normally, when a movie deprioritizes writing, you would think that would turn me off. But going all in with the animation, the art style, and the music really paid off in this case because, well, they're just that good. Besides, like I said, While they missed the mark when it comes to messaging, when it comes to writing good jokes and the individual character dynamics, they still did those very well. Part of that may be due to the fact that Huntrix may share traits with another trio that also have magical powers and sing banger songs. I guess that leads us to the part of the video that most of you guys came for, the comparison.
Right.
Admittedly, when I first heard about Kpop Demon Hunters and the comparisons between Huntrix and the Calamity trio, I actually thought it was mostly a joke, hinging around the fact that both trios involve 3 girls with magical powers and fighting skills who happen to be very goofy at times and can sing. Not much else on the surface level hints towards a connection aside from the fact that maybe Zoe and Marcy look kind of similar. Okay, maybe you can see visual similarities between Mira and Sasha too, but Rumi and Anne look nothing alike. At least that was the case on the surface. When I actually watched the movie, it turns out the comparisons really do go deeper beneath the surface. Each member of the trio does share an equal from a personality perspective, and arguably even from a character arc perspective. First, there's Zoe and Marcy, who in my opinion share the most obvious similarities. Both of them are probably the most adorable and nicest members of their respective trios, and they're the ones who bring the most positive spirit to their groups. They also like to ramble and write down observations and ideas into journals. Oh, and they also view themselves to have pretty niche interests, and they're very eager to please as many people as they could to feel validated.
Oh my gosh, Anne! I just got a spit of approval!
A little too eager.
What? I'm not like that. You guys would tell me if I was really like that, right?
But what I think is the most interesting similarity between the two characters is that they kind of share the same roles and desires for their respective trios. While the members definitely depend on each other and value their relationships a lot, Zoe and Marcy appear to be the ones who try the hardest to keep their respective groups together. When tensions between Rumi and Mira nearly boiled over in one moment, Zoe was the one that tried to defuse the situation. With the Calamity trio, Marcy served the same role when Anne and Sasha started arguing and when they severed their friendship. The reason why they are so committed to keep their conflicts to a minimum is because they need their friends to feel like they have a place to belong, and they will do anything to keep their friendship together. When their trios break up, you can see that they appear to be quite lost, although you could say all of them appear lost when they broke up. So it's a trait that everyone in Huntrix and the Calamity trio share. I guess if I were to sum up what connects these two, it's that they are the adorable members who are insecure about losing their friends because they fear they're nothing but a weirdo without them. Now, obviously they are still different characters in the way they overcome their insecurities, with one of them taking a much darker path to do so. But as far as personalities go, there's no doubt that Zoe and Marcy would get along very well if they were to ever meet each other. And that's something I could probably say with the rest of the trios. I guess that leads us to Mira and Sasha, who share a lot of surface level personality traits for sure. Both of them have a short fuse, act pretty bluntly towards other people, and they can be very aggressive. When it comes to their roles in their respective stories, both of them come into conflict with the main protagonist, Rumi and Anne. Of course, their motivations for their conflicts are different, but the results between them are what is expected. The trios inevitably fall apart at some point. They do get back together, of course, but through very different means, and we'll get to that in a moment. Another similarity between them is surprisingly their background. Both Mira and Sasha didn't have a good relationship with their biological families, with Mira being relegated as the black sheep of her family, and with Sasha having to deal with divorced parents, which may or may not have affected her desire for control over her friends. So if I were to sum up the connection between Mira and Sasha, both of them are the aggressive, short-fused members of their trios who feuds with the main protagonists and have family problems with their parents. Yeah, I definitely see them getting along if they were to meet as well. With those two explained, that leaves us arguably the most interesting parallel, Rumi and Anne. On the surface, Rumi and Anne actually share the least common surface level traits compared to the rest of the trios. Sure, both Rumi and Anne are the protagonists of both stories, and they are the lead singers of their respective groups. Although that's probably debatable when you consider the history of the Calamity trio. They butt heads with the aggressive members of their group, like I said, and that's about it as far as surface level comparisons go. When you look at their backgrounds, they couldn't be any different. Rumi grew up after both of her parents passed away, Meanwhile, Anne was fortunate enough to have loving parents who cared for her when growing up. Their personalities barely show any similarities. Rumi is obviously the hardest working member of Huntrix, while Anne is probably the most laid back member, at least when we first see them. Also, Rumi and her unwillingness to reveal her secret is what drove her apart. Meanwhile, in Amphibia, it was Marcy and her secret that drove the Calamity Trio apart. Although, in this case, she's not the only one who contributed to that group splitting up. On paper, the similarities between Rumi and Anne are pretty minimal, at least until you look deeper beneath the surface and look at their character arcs. Despite having different backgrounds, both protagonists share the same problem, with their inability to accept themselves. Rumi is of course insecure with her demon patterns, and the entire film revolves around her seeking acceptance, and she initially believed she will reach that point when she gets rid of her patterns. With Anne, her self-esteem issue is less obvious, but it revolves around her role among her friends. In the start of the show, Anne just did what she perceived as the easiest path, willing to do whatever to get along with her friends, even if it meant breaking rules and going against her moral code. Both of them were pressured to conform to the norms of their trios. However, when the two characters spend time away from their besties, they meet someone who brings out the best in them. In Rumi's case, it was Ginu, and in Anne's case, it was Sprig. These two are of course very different characters with completely different arcs, but the role they served was the same. By interacting with the protagonists, both Rumi and Anne accepted to embrace every part of themselves, including their flaws. When they were confronted regarding the need to conform to the norm, both of them refused and stuck to their guns, or swords in this case. Then finally, both protagonists, along with their respective besties, go on to fight the main antagonist in an epic final battle. Now of course, there are still glaring differences in their arcs, like how they ended for example.
I want to come here every day over 3-month hiatus.
Rumi, I'm so happy you didn't, die.
Wow, Zoe, way to be super literal.
But other than that, what all of this shows is that Rumi and Anne's story have the same message. They should embrace themselves, including their flaws, because ultimately, they will grow and change for the better. As you can see, between the individuals, Huntrix and the Calamity Trio share a lot in common. As a group though, there is one major thing that both of them have that really give the powers they have: their fans, both in the real world and in the respective fictional world. In the real world, I'm sure many Amphibia fans are just as big of fans as Huntrix, and vice versa. Well, hopefully vice versa one of these days. As for the fictional world, with Huntrix, I mean this in the literal sense that without the people of South Korea and the world broadly, the trio could not keep the Hanmun sealed and protect humanity from Guima. Their voices are really only as powerful as the souls who hear them. As for the Calamity Trio, I mean this in a more symbolic sense. The Calamity Trio's base of support is of course the amphibians. Without the help of key amphibians like the Planters, Grime, Yunnan, Lady Livia, the people of Wardwood, and everyone else in that world, the Calamity Trio would not have been able to discover their true selves and amend their friendships to be stronger. If they weren't able to do that, then they would have never been able to defeat the core from annihilating everyone in one way or another. The amphibians are immensely important for the respective arcs of Anne, Sasha, and Marcy, who together were able to save Amphibia's greatest treasure. What this shows is that even the characters that aren't in the fandom spotlight are also important for their respective stories. They are the support needed to make these trios amazing characters viewers can enjoy watching through and through. Kpop Demon Hunters and Amphibia, while they have very different premises, deep down they have pretty common key characters who give the same message to its viewers. You may be a flawed individual with insecurities and traits that many would find to be unacceptable, but accepting those flaws and learning to live with them is important for your growth, and the journey to do so is a lot easier when you have supportive people by your side. It's a lesson that all of us kind of forget to acknowledge nowadays in the age of social media, where we post about ourselves while hiding our flaws. But it's still an important one that these two trios hammered home into the hearts of many. But of course, that's just what I have to say about Kpop Demon Hunters, Huntrix, and Amphibia broadly. If you guys have anything to say about them, feel free to write them down in the comments below, and please give this video a like, and subscribe for more content like this. With all that said, Thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all have a great day. See you in the next one.